Nice. So shall we start with everybody just individually introducing themselves and their job titles and what you do, and then we'll go into the questions. So shall we start off with Ross?
So I'm Ross Tanner. I'm the new business and sales director within EMEA at Magnify. So for those that don't know, Magnify are an AI automated clipping business. We use AI to generate short form clips, predominantly in sport, but we're also working across or looking to work across different genres in broadcasting as well into news and entertainment. So we're an Indian-owned business, but we've recently tried to scale. We are scaling outside of India at the moment in the last sort of 2 to 3 years. So my job is to obviously do that with direct selling, but also through channel partners as well.
Great. Simon?
Hello, I'm Simon Brown from Clearcom. I'm the Vice President of Product Management at Clearcom. Clearcom is an intercom company. We've been in the business for many, many years, over 50 years. And we've seen automation with intercom and audio for many years. So it'd be interesting to describe some of that to you guys.
Cool. Paul?
So I'm Paul Charleston. I'm a principal at Quest and also the practice lead for systems integration. So me and my stable of solutions architects work with customers around the world in consultancy and delivering projects for them at various scales. And I think we at least sell 2 of the 3 other people's products.
And Peter?
Sure. I'm the Director of Product Management at Ross Video for the production workflow products. So Ross Video has a wide range of products from camera robotics, switchers, connectivity. Production workflow tends to be the software layer that ties a lot of that together. So it includes overdrive automation, it includes media asset management, newsroom solutions, and really makes everything work together in an automated way.
Cool. So I think we've got a good range of experience here, to a lot of insight. So I think the first question on the list was sort of how you would define the word automation in the context of broadcast technology. And Peter, do you want to start as we ended on you?
Sure. So automation is a big word that means a lot of things to a lot of different people. I think any solution that really saves effort for the user it can be considered automation. So everything from your automatic door lock or car starter can be considered an automation. Specifically in broadcast, I think of automation as a way to kind of take a bunch of complex steps that are required to produce a video or a production and replicate them in an automatic way, make them more repeatable, make them more consistent, and maybe even do more than what an individual human would be able to do.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Paul, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd say automation is the answer to budgets. If you had infinite people, infinite skilled workers able to do every minor interaction with all of the knowledge of how to deal with problems and uncertainties in that, you wouldn't really need as much automation. But the reality is that's not television. Budgets are squeezed. Everyone needs to do more with less. And the reality is certainly, as we look across from sports wanting automatic highlights, from newsrooms needing an automatic cut down of maybe a 3-hour event, and really to understand where the important pieces are, or even repurposing and creating versioning internationally with multi-language, all of these things, they need to happen faster, they need to happen repeatably, and they need to happen without a huge stable of people to do that.
So yeah, this idea of making life easier and thinking about budgets as well. Simon, do you have something you wanted to add to that?
I agree with all of that. And I mean, examples that I'm familiar with is a lot of the time you automate things which are very complex processes and make it easier to have fewer people achieving it. For example, bundling audio, intercom and video in some sort of like VSM kind of automation. It makes things easier, and it also it appeals to broadcasters that they can see the workflow in their own terms and automate it in a way that they understand. So I think from my point of view, I would say automation equates with making things simple, making the complex simple.
Okay, and finally, Ross, did you have anything you wanted to share on that?
Yeah, I come at it from the other side actually, in a sense that the audiences are now very much fragmented across different platforms. So obviously mobile has been with us for what 10, 15 years now, and the emergences of different social platforms and different content that needs to be served up at all times, 24/7. And I think that's the main reason why I think the automation workflows in traditional broadcasting need to use automation, because it's no longer just linear broadcasting. It's now serving the needs across digital, OTT, and social 24/7. So that's a new challenge that we've had to all deal with in the last sort of 5 to 10 years, I'd say.
So the next question, it kind of follows on kind of what you've all been saying, but I was going to ask you sort of what makes automation such an important part of a modern broadcast production recipe. And perhaps you could maybe focus in on what your company offers in the market. So just to give a specific example. So we could start with Simon, maybe.
Sure. And I've been in this business a long time. I think intercom has been automated from day one, pretty much. A lot of what we do, particularly with broadcasters, and it seems to be particular to broadcasters, is the management of intercom lines, coordination, audio and party lines and video out to remote sites has very often been automated and bundled up together, so everything gets controlled at once, rather than press this button for that, do this piece of software over there for that, and so forth. So it's a time simplification operation, and we offer things like host control interfacing, which is basically an API into the matrix-based system, so that people can remotely control our system from another router. Because quite often people are using the audio router or video router to achieve the master part of this, and then we follow from that. So it's been done for a while, and we continue to offer that capability.
Okay. Paul, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, simply that APIs and the ability to trigger things between different products is super important. But for me, automation really kind of builds into 3 tiers. One is the swear word in the broadcast industry, which is enterprise service bus. The concept that you can deconstruct the entire operations of a broadcast environment and define every decision point, break off everything that's happened. And certainly for us in the past, we've delivered IBM Arimas, we've delivered Aspira orchestrators with huge end-to-end processes that describe everything that the business wants to do. And that's really at one end. And I think the broadcast industry doesn't like that idea. It's not acceptable. And then at the other end, you've got product automation, which is very much what Simon's talking about, where the experts within their product, within their field, know exactly how that needs to work and all the information that needs to happen. And they automate that so that essentially you've got a button at the end, whether that's an API button or however you want to work it, it's a button at the end. But the third tier, which is the one that's really interesting to us as consultants, and that we end up working with our businesses quite a lot. And, we partner with people like Kib and a number of other automation providers who do a very granular piece in the middle, which is to say, product automation is fantastic, but you've got to wait for the products to be developed to do that. So whether that's bringing in AI, bringing in packaging, bringing in all those ideas, that's required to be done so that there is the button to press. And on the enterprise service bus, you would have to go through a huge process, pay people like me a heck of a lot of money to describe your entire end-to-end process and every decision point. But there's something in the middle where you say, actually, I understand little bits about what I've got from an overall service perspective, the products that enable me to do things like this triggering. But then there are also new items in the marketplace. So again, AI optimization, pulling in ChatGPT. How do I connect all of those things together? So for me, really, yes, the products can enable a lot of things. And then, yes, you can describe your entire business. But where it really becomes interesting is the granularity in the middle to say, we understand what our business needs. And rather than describing all of it, in this circumstance, say, for example, Ross's piece about reversioning of news or 24/7 for multi-platform, we can describe that much of it and then poke the different products to achieve that for us really, really quickly and enable one expert to sit there and do 20 people's work, because all they're doing is monitoring by exception and dealing with it by exception. So it's not replacing them, and it's also not just waiting for the products to be developed, but it becomes a really interesting piece in the middle that creates efficiency and optimization.
Yeah, I think that word replacement is quite a big one that people talk about at the moment. Is trying not to focus on the idea of replacement and helping instead. Okay, and Ross, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Just to continue on the theme, really, Verity, around what you're saying there. So I actually come from an editorial background. I used to be a former TV producer myself back in the day, and moved more into the sort of commercial sales world in more recent years. And so one thing I always sort of play back to, which is often part of my sales pitch these days with Magnify, is AI automation that we have within Magnify can offer you so much more, but a human lens and eye is always useful at some stage of the process. And so when we are at Magnify providing endless amounts of highlight clips or gold moments from sport or indeed news or entertainment, it's very much about providing more across the various platforms we're delivering it to. But that human touch at the end, for me, even though I'm selling an AI-based product, is still hugely important to get the results that the broadcasters need, or indeed in our world, it's for federations, sports leagues and sports clubs. I think the more that AI becomes more intuitive and the more data that we get, and remembering that AI, certainly in our space, we're right at the early stages of this growth. And I think the more that data comes into the platform, the more intuitive everything becomes. And I think the less the need of a human touch and a human eye.
And then finally, Peter, was there anything you had to add as well?
Sure, I'll echo a little bit of what everyone's been saying. I think Ross Video's whole vision of automation, if you want, is really to make that connection between the creative side and the actual reality of what goes onto the TV screen at the end of the chain very, very simple. So whatever you want to be able to create, it can be very complicated. You have lights, you have audio mixers that need to swish in and out, graphics, camera movements, all the rest of it. You need people that have to be able to control all of those things. The best humans in the world would be able to create a really, really great show every night, one night after another. They wouldn't be able to do it consistently. Automation gives them the ability to make sure that each one of those elements happens the exact same way every single night. Gives them that complex look. And like we said, it's not necessarily about replacing people. It's about improving that consistency and increasing that complexity to get a more polished, more professional look. To be able to really envision any set, any opening, any kind of production, and be able to actually implement that in a consistent way.
Okay, and then so obviously we've got a range of companies here that offer different tools and skill sets when it comes to the world of automation. So in your opinion, sort of what element of a broadcast production do you feel could use the most optimization via some of these automation tools, that perhaps ones we've already discussed or ones that haven't been discussed yet? So we could maybe start with Paul on this one.
Sure. Simple answer. Every single part of it, but completely dependent on your workflow. So, whether that's how you take in news feeds, newswire feeds, if that's how you create your reversioning around the world, if that's how you do your MAM to CMS publishing, if that's how you do your ingest using Slack with cameramen in the field, any of these different ways, acceleration of files, as-run logs, consolidation of as-run logs is a problem that has plagued us since the day that vision switches came to the marketplace. Now all of that is really easy to do with encapsulated automation. So really it's always just trying to understand that piece of your business. Where is the piece of work where your expert workers are doing easily defined, repeatable work? And that's where automation is going to help you.
And Peter, did you have something for that?
Sure. I mean, I agree with Paul. It's every step of the way along the entire production chain, from the journalist writing their story in their newsroom system, looking to summarize a news feed or translate it into a different language or change the tone. You can use AI tools to help with that kind of thing. Right through to during the live production, your opens can be more and more complex. Your going to break can be extremely fancy if you have the tools to control multiple elements from a single button push, like we were saying earlier, right off to the end where you have your finished product and you need to deliver to streaming platforms, social media, linear TV, all at the same time. Multiple steps can be combined in one and be automated in that way.
Simon, would you like to share as well?
Sure. So a lot of the process of intercom is like at every show break or every change in program schedule, you need to reconfigure the whole, like a telephone exchange. Everybody has to talk to different people. All the keys have to say different things. So a lot of that, the automation that's offered, certainly by Clearcom and others, is that you try and provide macros for changes, like, for example, the members and partner lines, or the sources that go into IFBs back to remote sites. So you automate all that, put it on a key on a panel. So somebody at a technical position would say, right, at the juncture, which could be variable and not necessarily schedulable, you can say we press this button and then all the IFBs will now change over to the other arena for our sports program we're in the middle of. And that's something achievable. It automates and makes things simple. It makes it so you don't forget who gets right sources and so forth. So all of that is very useful. I think all of us probably have got an involvement in IP audio, certainly with things like SMPTE 2110, and now with NMOS, device discovery and connection management. This has automated a lot of the hard graft in providing file exchanges just to set up your connections. So that automation has something come in the last 2 years, and it is making a big difference, particularly for bigger broadcast organizations who've signed the check and gone into an all IP kind of structure. So I think that's very, very helpful. On very large organizations, and we're talking about the ones with multiple production sites on multiple things, particularly things like election times or Olympics and so forth, scheduled changes to intercom is something that's needed, and providing sort of SIP connections between cores and then using a scheduling system to do that has automated a considerable amount of work. That the problem with that one is, of course, that nobody tends to want to be in charge of the whole network. So if you schedule it, you can blame it on the software. But no, I mean, it's something you can pre-organize, and so everybody knows who's connected to who, and all the individual audio trunking is done. So there's a fair amount of automation in something as very straightforward it appears as intercom, but it's essential these days for the slick services that broadcasters need.
Okay. And finally, Ross, did you have something you wanted to add to that question?
Yeah. Just finally, from my side, I think at Magnify, there's kind of a few small use cases that we're seeing that really kind of resonate with our customers. So one actually at the moment, which we launched about a year ago now, is in sports, in the context of ball sport specifically, is converting from a 16:9 aspect ratio into 1:1 or 9:16. And when a goal scored, for example, or a six is hitting cricket, that ball is tracked from 16:9 into those different aspect ratios and can be published directly to a chosen social media platform or indeed a digital platform. I think, again, coming from my editorial background, trying to do that in an edit suite manually from an Avid suite or from a Final Cut is very cumbersome and long. And so that, for me, just a small example of how the automation flow in sport is really well received in the marketplace.
Okay. Again, sort of focusing on more specific examples, what sort of off the top of your heads have you seen as some of the most cutting edge developments in automation technology? And we can start with you, Ross, because we just finished on you, so why not?
Yeah, in the preparation to this call, actually, sorry, it's another sport example, but one thing I noticed for those that enjoy their cricket, the ICC Cricket World Cup is coming up in India shortly. And they announced, I think it was last week, that they're going to do the entire 48 matches, I think it is, or 46 matches in a sort of 9:16 output. So whilst you can see their host broadcast and be done in 16:9 with the usual broadcast output that all the official licensees will see globally, they'll be offering a second package to their licensees and to their digital platforms, which will have it in 9:16, and that really is quite an exciting leap. I don't think I've seen it done in football. Maybe I'm wrong in that saying that, but yeah, it's quite an exciting leap where it offers a different experiences for those that are consuming on mobile. And I think that's a huge leap forward in that kind of production space where they're doing it for that kind of experience on mobile.
I think that speaks to that kind of fan engagement topic as well. That's huge with sports broadcast at the moment. Okay, that's a good example. Simon, did you have an example?
Well, the one I've been most impressed with in my world is where you move control rooms and reassign studios to control rooms. It sounds very simple. It's incredibly complicated. That everything, the monitors, the video switch, and the audio systems, the intercom, the panels and key, everything gets changed over. If, for example, if the control room switcher goes down, or let's say the audio system, whatever, goes down, they all run to the next control room and then reassign themselves. We've aided that to a certain extent with our login operation. So somebody can go to the panel and select their role and then log in. And I think that's something that's reasonably universal in other technologies too. But the reassignment of control rooms to studio floors has bugged broadcasters for many years. It's extremely complicated to do. And I'm seeing more of that happening now with ease, particularly with sort of self-login. And IP infrastructure allows for it, of course, because the device is not, if you like, hardwired effectively to some sort of switch. It is effectively a device that can have its own address and can be reassigned somewhere else. So the IP technology has made that sort of studio control and assignment a lot easier and very effective.
Okay. Peter?
Yeah, I'll echo almost exactly what Simon just said. Is we've been working a lot on and seeing a lot on it has been really more of what we call the back of house engineering function. It's not so much about automating specific devices like cameras and switchers, which we've done a lot of. It's more about having flexible production spaces, like Simon was saying, and being able to just dynamically allocate devices, dynamically orchestrate them, use them in different ways, reprogram them. Have a control room being used to produce it or to build the show up front, and then suddenly realize, oh, we've got to use a different control room to actually run the show. And okay, load it up to the server, download it into the other control room, and be ready to go in under 3 minutes. Just dynamically allocate spaces and be flexible in that way. That's where we're seeing a lot of movement right now.
Mm-hmm. And who haven't I said? Paul, did you have anything as well that you wanted to share for that?
I'd say it's all of them. It's the meta of it all, right? And it's, again, like we said, now that almost everything is API controlled, able to communicate, built with an architecture that allows it to all interconnect, it's what you can achieve. So whether it's the examples that Simon and Peter are talking about, where I can go to a system, any system, and I can press a button and have a bunch of stuff happen, whether it's rerouting, whether it's network orchestration, whether it's software defined processes, it all happens from a single button press to enable the people. But I think the one I like the most is more towards Ross's point of view, which is the AI. Everybody's talking about AI and it's fantastic. And as I said earlier, products, building AI into their ecosystem, that's fine, but it's when you can break out of that world. So like I was saying earlier about Newsroom, I saw a demonstration at IBC, which was take a half an hour feed from, let's say, the UN or something like that, go to one AI engine that then looks at that, finds the important points, create markers from that, but initializes a candidacy to the Newsroom. So for trust and truthfulness, it can still be rechecked. But then with a single button press, that was then pushing out to a system that would translate it into 6 different languages of that speech, create an AI presenter of that speech in those languages with the right localization and personalization, because again, for trust and truthfulness, certain countries, certain regions want a different presentation, and then put those candidates back to somebody. So within 2 button clicks, they can publish to 7 different countries in the world in different languages, and it's just all being empowered, but it's still trusted, it's still truthful. So that really, for me, is where automation hits the sweet spot.
And I think that idea of AI kind of will be tying quite a lot into the last question, which is talking about future broadcasts when we're seeing the increased deployment of automation tools. And I think, yeah, obviously that that word AI is being thrown around a lot. I mean, even in the publishing world, we're talking about it a lot. So yeah, what perspective do you have on that, Peter?
Yeah, I think AI is definitely going to start influencing a lot of the automation workflow tools in the future. You could see, Ross has talked a lot about sport, but you could see a near future where some kind of engine is following the game, listening to the play-by-play or the, you know, all the data that's being created around any kind of sporting event right now, using that to find the highlights of the clip, automatically building highlight reels, automatically cutting to that highlight reel when there's a pause in the action or in between periods or quarters or what have you, building that up, translating the play-by-play automatically. I mean, there are so many things that AI is capable of doing in a seamless way. I think it's really about helping operators in an unscripted environment make decisions more quickly and more accurately than they would be able to do than the human brain is actually capable of doing on their own. So yeah, I think there's a lot of progress there, and AI is certainly going to drive a lot of it.
Okay. And Ross, do you have something you want to share on that as well?
Yeah, I mean, Peter sort of touched upon a lot of what we do at Magnify already, in terms of what we do in that sort of production flow in sport and in AI. I think the one bit which is very interesting, I used to work within the Opta data business, and I think to Peter's point around automating play-by-play event data is going to be something which I think is going to be a massive for the industry if they can get it right. Stat Perform, they've been working on it for a while, but it's still ultimately manually created, certainly for the top leagues and competitions that exist out there. So I think eventually if they can get that right, or indeed another player, I think that's going to be really compelling. In terms of us, in terms of Magnify, just quickly as a small sort of sales pitch here, we don't actually need, and this is quite ironic that I say this, but we don't actually need an Opta or a data source to timestamp our clips. We actually do it through our AI that we've developed, through facial recognition, through the broadcast graphics, and through the commentary feed. And that enables us to create the clips automatically. So from our side, that's a critical part for us to reach those that don't have event data packages officially through I don't know, the Premier League or the NBA or whoever. And that part is really important for us as we target sort of tier 2 and downwards, where budgets are tighter and there is more need for this type of solution. So that's our kind of focus really at Magnify, is to supply that type of service to the market.
Yeah. And Paul, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I would just add another piece of the industry, which is thinking about the other massive buzzword around, other than AI, which is fast channels. When again we're looking at things happening, we've talked a little bit about, you know, the social aspect of the world and the way that audiences are changing. So I see that fast channels will almost become easier to spin up for companies because they understand what they need. So this gives the ability for an automation system to be looking at what's trending on TikTok. So if everybody is suddenly talking about Hollyoaks actor from 8 years ago, track that data, work that into your system, and then bring a load of footage back from the MAM, spin up a new fast play out channel, schedule everything about that Hollyoaks actor, and suddenly have all of these extra eyes back to your platform, because you're hitting the zeitgeist, you're hitting the ability to do that. And that's about viewer value, right? Because that's engaging in the real conversation, rather than going back to an engineering perspective where we build it and they have to come.
With Paul as well, I think it's just spinning up content packages from whether it's something that's happened like literally a minute ago in news, or indeed 10 years ago in sport history, or indeed an entertainment series such as Hollyoaks that you just referenced there, Paul, that you can spin up content packages using automation tools that can meet the demands of anywhere they're sat at their home on their mobile or wherever they are around the world. Whether that's through a fast channel or whether that's through another sort of platform, I think personalizing that experience through more automation tools is going to be critical for us all moving forward.
Okay, and then Simon, did you have a thought you wanted to add to that as well?
I think for us, the Holy Grail, of course, is a self-configurable system. it's going to be hard to achieve. But considering how fast things move, when we've just had two examples from Paul and Ross about how events can overtake, and generally speaking, intercom systems and audio systems and video systems have to be managed to cater for those second by second changes. It would be something to have the intercom self-configure in the way that it knows how roughly it did it last time. It's understanding what video feeds are coming and audio feeds. It's understanding where the remotes are and saying, well, I need to throw this out there. I need to do that. I need to couple these people together. I need to balance all this audio because, of course, audio levels can be very different. And so if you can achieve that in an automated fashion, I think it would make things very slick. Because I think what we're trying to achieve is the intercom system should disappear into the background. It should be there and not intrude. The video and the audio is what people want. We don't really want to know what's going on in the intercom system. But without it, of course, things fall apart. But we have to have some sort of means by which we can sort of allow and facilitate these very quick changes. And I think that could be automated in the future.
Yeah, I think the audio angle is a really interesting one with this, because I think there's a lot of focus on the actual background processes, but audio's one that still needs a lot of work, I think, in the automation space. Okay, and then generally, are there any sort of closing thoughts that anybody wanted to share? That's sort of, we've covered the majority of the questions I had there. Yeah, was there anything anyone else wanted to add in? Yeah, Paul.
The beauty of automation and the beauty of granular systems is that they are ready for the future by definition. No new product is going to hit the market without API, without integration points now. So this is the point of automation. It becomes a flexible center where you can have anything, do anything to anything. And as you bring new products in, you don't have to wait in a development roadmap or go and buy a new product because the last vendor is no longer interested in that product that you bought. It just opens it out and it democratizes the entire ecosystem of broadcast. The thing that we've been talking about ever since COT servers, IP movement, we're finally there. We're at the point where we can start to build systems that are not held back by vendor inaction or a particular decision that was made 10 years ago. So democratizing technology through automation.
Anything else from anybody else, or do you feel we've covered everything?
Yeah, just wanted to maybe go back to what we started with. We talked about automation having this bad rap of replacing people, and I think what we should really highlight is that it's not really about replacing people. It's about helping people. It's about helping people do more things and do it more consistently to create either more content or better looking content that can then reach more people. Ultimately, that's what we're trying to do as an industry, is reach people. And automation can help us do that. It's not about replacing jobs. It's about allowing the people we have to do more.
Agreed. And I think one element of working with people, of course, is helping the training element. If you can centralize your operations in some sort of automation, you don't need to train people to the granular depth you had to do in every single device that's connected to that automation system. The automation system is the device you train people on and say, when this happens, do that. I think that's really helping. Particularly, I think now younger people have not had years and years of experience of very manual-based processes in video and editing and audio mixing and so forth, and now coming in and expecting the kind of automation they see on their cell phones. I think the automation processes in quite complex broadcasting will allow for that in the future, and we'll all forget how we had to look at meters and needles and and watch timing on video signals, and all that will disappear because that's going to be automated.
That's the dream.
Yeah, we no longer park our hard disks after we leave our PC.
Rob, did you have a final thought as well you wanted to share before we closed?
Yeah, just one final thought from my side. So I think one thing that sometimes us as service providers sometimes forget in the industry is to actually put your head in the space of the customer. So whether that's a broadcaster or in our world, it's a federation, a league or a sports club, and understand fully what they're trying to achieve as a goal. And then if you can't deliver what they need, to Paul's point, can we partner with another business that can supply something together with ours? Can we integrate with an API, and then can we provide something which is more compelling? So a really good example of this that we released at IBC actually is a tactical partnership with Grabio. So Grabio, you probably all know them as a business. You may actually think they would compete in some ways, but actually combining the automation of our tool into the front end experience of Grabio and their manual editing functionality is a really compelling offer that we can bring to market, which is going to meet the need for a lot of customers in the top end of the market. So that was something which I wanted to kind of end on.
Okay, well, thanks so much, everyone. I'm just going to stop the recording.